we are trying to make a difference for someone that's not just riding the public transportation, that may be walking along that street, that may be biking along that street, and trying to make it more seamless for them to go from one mode of that transportation option to another.
Hey Raleigh, curious about how things really work in your capital city? We've got answers straight from the experts that make it happen. Welcome to Your City Answered. I'm Katie Dombrowski. From faster trips to fewer stops and dedicated lanes, Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, is designed to move more people more efficiently across growing cities like Raleigh. With construction beginning along New Bern Avenue, you may be seeing changes take shape already. So what is Bus Rapid Transit? Let's sit down with Senior Transit Planner Gabrielle Wilkins and Assistant Director of Transit Het Patel to learn more.
Bus Rapid Transit is a large capital infrastructure project really trying to stand transit apart in the region. It has been implemented in a lot of different areas within the United States. It is a way to try to get more speed, reliable service, transit service, public transportation to our community and our users that really rely on getting from point A to point B. The way it stands out, there's a lot of features that we can talk about, and Gabe can get into some of these details as well, but we're really trying to make it seamless, convenient for people to think about public transportation as a mode for their day-to-day trips.
We have a bus system now though, and people ride the bus all over Raleigh. So Bus Rapid Transit, how is that different?
BRT really builds on that system. So our first corridor, New Bern Avenue, was selected because it's the most productive route. And when we talk about that, that means we have the most riders using that service per mile. So it's
when you say
shorter.
Corridor, what is a corridor?
Yeah, so the corridor is how we like to refer to effectively the road that will be implementing a lot of the BRT infrastructure. Normally we think of transit routes because they just kind of weave through lots of different streets. BRT really focuses on sticking with kind of as linear as you can so that you're not making as many turns. That feeds into some of the speed that we get out of it. And the corridor also implies the kind of infrastructure that isn't just the bus. So it's not just the bus with stops and shelters. There's much more infrastructure with the larger stations and dedicated lanes that go into it.
So how many corridors does Raleigh have for Bus Rapid Transit?
Yeah, so we've got 4 in the works, then actually it's going to turn into 5 as we continue to investigate some planning projects on the northern corridor going out to North Raleigh, connecting to Midtown Raleigh and to Triangle Town Center, so that's being split into 2. The multimodal accommodations, dedicated bus lanes, the stations.
And what does multimodal mean?
Adding bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure as part of those corridor investments. So again, that's why we look at it as a large project on a corridor. It's not just one element of that roadway that we're addressing. We're addressing multiple modes of transportation within that project limits. And so that's why New Bern Avenue as a corridor from downtown to New Hope Road is seen as one giant project that's going to also help bicycle pedestrian infrastructure along with the public transportation infrastructure.
For instance, along a lot of New Bern Avenue, we're installing either widening sidewalks or adding a multi-use path that can accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, or anyone kind of using that infrastructure, with the aim that makes it easier for people to get to the stations, but also to any destination that's along that corridor.
So with the bus, you're adding a place for people to walk, a place for people to ride their bike and get from A to B. And you're doing that along New Bern Avenue, but where else are you doing that in Raleigh?
Yeah, so New Bern Avenue is where we're starting. That's project just entered construction. And then we're also going south of downtown along South Wilmington Street, entering just the northern edge of the town of Garner. And then our third corridor is the Western Corridor. It goes along Western Boulevard after it leaves downtown on Salisbury.
And then takes you to Cary?
Yeah, it takes you past Dix Park through NC State's campuses, kind of both sides of them, and then past 440 and all the way out to downtown Cary. And then the northern corridors that started as one single corridor will be branching into 2. One will go up Capitol Boulevard and then over to Midtown, and then the other will leave downtown, same route, and go all the way to Triangle Town Center.
where are these buses going to go? Like, just on the street, riding along with everybody else in their cars? Or, like, what makes these BRT special or different from the Red Go Raleigh buses that we see on the roads right now?
Yeah, so we're going to have larger vehicles. One of the main aspects of bus rapid transit is trying to provide more capacity to our existing user base, as well as provide that option that's more convenient. And so these larger vehicles are going to run in their
The bendy bus?
The bendy buses, the
Okay.
accordion buses.
Okay.
They are going to run within their own dedicated bus lanes. And so they will have an opportunity to not get stuck in traffic where there are congested parts of our corridor, as well as they'll have level boarding stations. So these stations are a little bit larger than our regular bus shelters. And so when the buses pull up to the station, it's almost like a light rail vehicle or a rail vehicle where the floor of the bus will be at the same level of the platform.
Oh, so it's
you're
not going to
getting-
kneel down and you're not going to step up onto the bus.
At the level boarding stations, it's going to be
Okay.
like that, where you easily just walk on and off. If you have a mobility device, it's easier to get on and off the bus. If you have a bicycle, we're actually loading our bicycles to the inside of the vehicle as opposed to in front of the vehicle. Again, trying to reduce some of those barriers from a user perspective, where someone may feel intimidated by having to go up in front of the bus and pull the rack down and put their bicycle on. And some of those things do tend to help people make that decision more seamlessly, or you don't have to think about it a lot.
Yeah. I know I'm scared to put my bike on the front of the bus. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to roll it on there. You hit on something that I'd like y'all to talk about for a second. A lot of people bring this up when they hear about bus rapid transit, which is why we're not doing a rail instead. So can you guys talk about why maybe we're doing BRT and what the whole rail conversation is around that project?
Yes, I mean, I think rail is certainly still a topic that's very much an interest of the community and the Wake County Transit Plan as a whole. The most recent vision plan update that the Wake County Transit Plan did does look at being ready for rail and trying to put some infrastructure towards regional rail projects and some of the capital infrastructure there. So that is a State Department of Transportation project that we're tracking and trying to coordinate closely with how does that connect to bus rapid transit and the overall transportation network. As it relates to why we're not doing rail and some of the other smaller segments or corridors, it's really about how the initial 10-year plan for Wake Transit Plan had to do some trade-offs as it relates to how much money do we want to spend on increasing 15-minute frequency on the entirety of our bus network. Where can some of these capital projects give us the most benefit for our buck from a return of investment perspectives?
So you just mentioned something else that I think is really interesting about BRT, which is the frequent service. So can you talk more about the frequent service of BRT, why it's special?
Yeah, so we envision and we're planning for all the BRT corridors to operate, to kind of have transit service at minimum 15-minute frequency, which means every 15 minutes a bus is going to arrive.
Always.
Yeah. And during the kind of peak period, which will actually cover most of the kind of workday, as well as the kind of middle of the day on the weekends, that'll be 10-minute frequencies. And anywhere that the BRT lines overlap, especially in downtown, that might kind of double because you have more corridors, and so you have kind of lots more vehicles to cover. And so in pieces of downtown, you'll get down to 7 minutes. All of that is why we have some of the dedicated infrastructure. We're really trying to minimize how long the bus stays at a station so that we can keep them moving quickly through traffic, past traffic, to meet that frequency.
And the buses, sorry, just
no,
to
you go
add,
ahead.
the buses also run longer. So right now our normal operation hours are 5 a.m. to midnight on weekdays, and the buses for bus rapid transit will run 4 a.m. to midnight on weekdays.
Okay.
And so we're adding an hour in the morning hours as well as in the late evening hours on the bus rapid transit service to really account for more service, more reliability for the users that are trying to depend on it for other needs.
And you guys also touched on this, and the reason this can happen is because they have their own lane. And when a bus rapid transit bus rolls up to the light, is it true that the light will just let the bus go and everyone else stops? And is that how you keep? Like, how does that work? Is it have just is it magic?
So you're describing two different technologies that both of which will play at different times. So in some instances, we'll have what's called a queue jump, which is a dedicated lane at intersections, and sometimes with a special signal head that creates a kind of phase in the signal that the bus gets to kind of skip ahead. And sometimes that helps it get out of traffic if needed sometimes, or just get ahead of traffic in certain scenarios. And then you have transit signal priority, which happens a little bit further from the intersection when the bus is still moving. It can communicate with the same system that manages the traffic signals. And if it's a very full bus that's maybe a little bit behind schedule, it can talk to the signals in a way that says, hey, give me priority, keep the green running a little bit longer so I can get through the intersection. Or, oh, we need to stop right before the intersection. We can go to red so that people can board while it's a red phase, other cars are moving.
Very cool.
I've joked at certain presentations that essentially it could be a presidential style service that if you wanted to, from point A to point B on the entire leg, the bus could ask for a green light at every signal that it encounters.
Okay.
We're not going to do that from an operations perspective because a lot of times our signals are well coordinated. So if you have a green light, you're probably going to hit the green throughout that entire stretch, so it may not be an issue. And if we're not running behind, we're not trying to make this a challenge for the rest of the traffic network either, because then the signal phases have to catch up to each other. But we could if we really needed.
So our future BRT riders should not request presidential service when they get on the bus.
I don't think they'll need to.
Okay, great. All right, I love that.
Yeah, they won't be waiting for long, and they'll try to get from point A to point B much faster than they're doing that today, and so that shouldn't be needed.
What should they be most excited about when it comes to BRT in Raleigh?
Yeah, I've been working on these projects for 7 years. And one of the things that really excites me is, again, it's not just about this one mode. We are trying to make a difference for someone that's not just riding the public transportation, that may be walking along that street, that may be biking along that street, and trying to make it more seamless for them to go from one mode of that transportation option to another and not have to worry about safety challenges or other risks and or really try to plan their trip and be more intuitive in terms of just getting up and going. And that will be something that is a benefit over the current existing conditions.
I think the buses are worth checking out. They're really cool vehicles, especially the larger ones. They're very roomy, comfortable. For folks that haven't given the bus a try, it's worth it. Just being able to not worry about parking or even driving the vehicle as it's moving opens up a lot of room for other things to relax or do work if that's your.
So construction for bus rapid transit has begun on our New Bern corridor. Can you tell us what that looks like? It's a very exciting milestone in the project.
Yeah, so we're starting in downtown with the first set of activities, and it also includes a lot of underground water and sewer work. So that's where they're starting in downtown, likely around East and Swain Street. Is the starting point. Right now, what you'll probably seeing on the corridor is some warning signs, some traffic control measures starting to be put into place where they're going to have some lane closures during construction. But there are going to be some disruptions, and our engineering services department will do communications on the website for where activity is happening, at what stretches of the corridor, and how their construction contractor is going to progress through the different phases. It is going to be a 3.5-year construction window. So they're not going to be at one location.
That was my next question is when are we going to ride the bus?
They're not going to be at one location for 3.5 years. It's going to kind of go back and forth throughout the entire corridor. Our current plan is to have revenue service, which is people actually riding the buses on New Bern Avenue in the summer of 2030.
All right, summer of 2030. It's almost here.
Almost there.
Got a question you'd like us to dig into? We'd love to hear it. Visit RaleighNC.gov and search podcast to submit your questions. Plus, catch every episode. Thanks for listening to Your City Answered, where your questions lead the conversation. Brought to you by the City of Raleigh.